So first point of business, we did have Petra about a week and a half ago now. I think there haven't been any real analyses published yet, but have client teams noticed anything so far? Anything you want to talk about or discuss? Yeah. Great. Then that's, I guess, good news. The first topic of business is going to be Fusaka DevNet Zero planning. So there's been a message on the interop chat that basically clarifies what EIPs are a part of Fusaka DevNet Zero. So I'll just link it over here again, so everyone knows what EIPs are referred to. Essentially, it's PRDAS, ModXP upper limit. We have ModXP gas cost increase. Let me just mute. Yeah. ModXP gas cost increase and blob parameter only hard forks. I know that the BPO forks are still a point of discussion that we will have to the rest of ACD. But at this moment, are all teams okay with both the ModXP EIPs being included for Fusaka DevNet Zero? And I think the main argument against it would be if it's significant amount of work for implementation on the EL side. Okay. Cat and Bezu say it's good for them. Reds as well. Okay. Is there anyone against having both EIPs? Okay, perfect. So I think all ELs are in agreement there. The document has already been changed. Let me find it. Quick link that. Yeah, so you should be able to see the Fusaka DevNet Zero specs over there. Once you do have your client ready, then please reach out to us and we can already have a kurtosis config updated and start testing on that front. Anything else that needs to be discussed for Fusaka DevNet Zero?
So I'd like to discuss BPO because there was a suggestion by Marius to treat like to have explicit forks on the EL side for BPO. So what was the agreement on that? Are we doing that?
Yeah, so that would be the next big topic. Marius, since you posted a comment about it, do you first want to articulate your position?
Sure. I posted my position in ACD channel a couple of days ago. Basically, these BPOs are just normal hard forks on the execution layer. The only reason why we don't have them as normal hard forks on the consensus layer is because the consensus layer people update don't want to copy a bunch of boilerplate code for their forks. But since the rules change, we need to also update the fork ID. Otherwise, we might peer with peers that are on the wrong fork. And so my position is that we have a mechanism to update the fork ID. We have a mechanism to update to specify forks. We should limit the amount of changes that we need to do, and just use the mechanism that we have. The downside to doing this is that we can only specify a set number of BPOs. and the that's not really a problem for anyone except maybe for testing if they want to specify an unbound number of forks. But I don't see any reason to do that. Like if we specify 5 BPOs, then I don't see a point in doing more than that on any DevNet. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. I think is there someone on the CL side who can articulate the issue over there? Because this will be something that I guess affects both of you guys. Or it could still be a complete hard fork on this EL side and not a complete hard fork on the CL side, right?
Yeah, I think we should like limit this discussion to the EL side. Like there's no reason to get the CL involved. They will do what they want to do, and we can do what we want to do.
Got it. Because there's also a parallel long CL discussion. So I was thinking if first we can have the positions of the two sides and then see if there's any overlap or not. And if not, then we make two separate decisions. Yeah, Putus, do you want to go for the CL side?
Yeah, so I agree with Marius that I mean we can have separate discussions about the EL and the CL. These are completely independent decisions, but I think the same problem of peering appears on both sides. I mean, it's they are independent problems, but it is exactly the same problem. So it is a discussion to be having in both sides.
Got it. So it's the exact same point essentially that you need to unpeer or repeer with someone, which means your fork ID likely needs to change. And at that point, it's
No,
basically
not necessarily a fork ID, but the abstract problem here is when do you unpeer with someone that is on a different fork? Do you want to do this at the handshake level, or do you want to downscore it later on because they're feeding you bad data? I mean, the question is how early in the pipeline do you want to unpeer from these people?
Okay, that feels like an implementation topic that maybe we can deal with on the next basis, on the next discussion point.
I don't think it's an implementation topic. I mean, if you want to do this at the handshake level, then it has to be part of the P2P spec.
Okay. Terence, do you want to go?
Sure, but like on the CL side, so I've implemented the BPO stuff, right? So like on the CL side, the peering, they actually use this like max commitments per blob, and that's actually capped at like a very, very high number already. That's like 4,096. So that's like the max you can go. So I think on the CL side, it's slightly different, but like Porter said, yes, maybe we can like change it to more like an EL side, but CL doesn't have a mempool, so it's slightly different as well. So yeah, it's not clear to me what's the best path forward.
Okay. And Raul also has a comment. Do you want to just read it out, Raul?
Besides kind of like the protocol and the peer-to-peer details, I think there's another relevant point here, which is it does change, a BPO change does change the rules. And therefore clients that it breaks backwards compatibility. And therefore I think in just a general sense, it should be treated as a hard fork also for signaling in terms of like communicating why in the future, communicating why the change a particular rule at a particular point in time. Otherwise, it's just going to be blended into kind of like a file somewhere, an obscure file somewhere. It's going to be really hard to communicate this change and track it over time.
Yep, that makes sense. So at least summarizing the points till now, it seems like hard forks would be the most straightforward way to go. Is there anyone on either side arguing for a non-hard fork approach? Yeah, photos.
Yeah, if it's possible to avoid the hard fork, I would rather avoid it on the CL side. I think we can just signal this on the handshake and not add all of the boilerplate of having an actual hard fork on the CL side. It's not a hill that I want to die on, but if we can just only scope it so that at the time of the handshake, you signal this, it would make our life much easier, I believe. And it would not delay peer deaths.
Yeah, and I guess that is to Gajinder's point then that if we were to do it just with the handshake, then it would leave scope for some bad data, right?
I'm sorry?
Gajinder's point was if we only do it with handshake, that means there would lead to some scope for bad data because you're not doing handshakes all the time.
Well, I mean, if you get a handshake, I mean that's quite normal, right? If I get a handshake from someone that tells me I am in this set of consensus rules and it sends me bad data anyways, then that's either a buggy client or it's a malicious client. But we can deal with that. The issue here is that if we don't do it at the handshake level, we might be talking to clients that are honestly thinking that they are on the same fork as we are and sending us the wrong gas computation. And we can only find out about this after the EL has returned that the payload is invalid. So this leads to a situation in which we reconnect to peers that are in the wrong fork. So I think the right solution to this problem would be, the solution that I would prefer on this problem would be that we set an ID at the handshake level. And on top of that, we rely on this thing that if the client is buggy and is sending us the wrong computation, then the block will be invalid eventually.
Okay, that makes sense. So is there anyone speaking against a hard fork at this point then? Sorry, on the CL side doing it the handshake approach and on the EL side doing it as a hard fork. Okay, okay. Maybe we again just open it from each side perspective. So for the EL side, let's first finish that discussion, and then we can open up the CL side discussion. So on the EL side, Roman, do you want to go?
I just want to ask a question, like what are we actually implementing then for DevNet 0? Like, are we just predefining 5 future BPO hard forks and that's it? And if that's the case, like, why are we doing this now for Fusaka instead of, I don't know, later when the actual BPO time comes?
It isn't necessarily on the critical path for Fusaka, but one of the ideas is that if we can showcase that the BPO approach actually works, then we don't need to do a massive scale increase directly at Fusaka, but we could first deliver PRDAS at roughly the same blob count or a modest increase, and then already pre-schedule a blob increase shortly after. So this gives us some amount of time to make sure that everything is working as expected. So BPO would be the primary mechanism in which Fusaka actually gets the scaling. Yeah, Terence?
I actually think there is a gap today in how the consensus spec is defined with regards to BPO, right? Because when you have Fusaka, we all upgrade to the correct like subnet ID, that's right. But whenever BPO like changes its number, like I think there is a missing gap. The P2P interface spec is not defined today. It's that saying that okay, based on that, we have to like connect to the new peer, and here is the new peer ID, blah blah blah. And that part is actually missing in the spec today, so we probably should update that.
Okay, maybe could you put that as an issue on the consensus specs repo, and then we can track that and make sure that someone has a look at this? Okay, so on the EL side, that means that we are basically choosing the hard fork approach, and we are just setting a bunch of BPO times in advance, and we're agreeing to a fixed number, and that fixed number could be 5, which should be also okay from a testing perspective. And if and when we need more than 5, we would just go through the cycle, and the ELs would schedule essentially more BPOs for us. Does that sound okay for all the EL teams? Are any EL teams against it, perhaps? And also, just to clarify, is this fine for the testing teams?
I don't see a
Mario, for
problem with it.
example, yeah? Okay.
I don't see
So
I don't see a problem. Yeah.
yeah, I also don't see an issue with this approach for kurtosis tests. Yeah, Barnabas?
Yeah, I got a quick question. So on the ER side, we need the timestamp now inside of the blob schedule in the Genesis file.
Yeah, why do you need that?
We were discussing that last week to have the timestamp in there so that you don't have to actually have BPO one time defined as a fork. I'm just curious if you still need that or if we agreed not to have that anymore.
So I'm of a mind that we only need it outside of the schedule itself. So it's a hard fork, it activates at a time slot, and then the details of what goes into the hard fork is defined in the blob schedule.
Okay. This request was made by Roman, I think, last week. So I'm just curious if now we are all on the same page that we don't need the timestamp inside the blob schedule.
Yeah.
I can clarify a bit that all of my misconceptions regarding the BPO format were coming from a fact that I did not appreciate that this needs fork ID updating as well until Marius pointed that out. So I rescind all of my previous comments.
Okay, so we don't need the timestamp in there.
I wanted to ask about the format because in the EAP and in the examples shared, the values are rendered as JSON numbers, while in the rendered East fixtures, I saw that the values were rendered as hex strings. So could we actually render them everywhere as numbers, not strings?
I think Nethermind needs it at hex strings, and that is only Hive, I think. I see. Yep. Yeah. I mean, the problem is that we have to homogenize everything to be either hex strings or decimal. That is a problem in East. Do you want decimals or hexadecimals?
Well, I prefer them to be decimal integers. I mean, we could, but okay, we could implement reading both formats, but it's a bit
I
clumsy.
think we definitely shouldn't mix it. I think Nethermind is the only one using hex right now. So for the Nethermind chain spec format, we can continue using hex, but for everyone else, we should keep them on the same format they exist at right now. Yeah, Justin?
So there is one case where we would have to intermix them, which kind of sucks because my understanding is that JSON uses doubles under the hood. And so for any integer values that could blow through that, you might need a workaround where you hex encode it or at least stringify it. Seems to be a known issue with JSON, and it kind of contributed to the intermixing in the design. I am also not a fan of it, but I think it's a thing.
Okay. Marek?
Yeah, just to clarify about Nethermind format, I'm almost sure that we should handle not hex as well. By default, we have hex everywhere, but I'm almost sure that we can handle other numbers to be confirmed by some testing. But yeah, I think it shouldn't be a problem.
Awesome. So if that is the case, then we should be standardizing on int, I guess, and not on hex.
We can give it a try to change everything to decimal. I would like to first make a pass on the generation of tests to see if anything like to see if this JSON error produces something that is invalid, and I'll have to get back to you. But yeah, I can keep an update on the Discord. Someone from the East team can check on this. Yeah.
Awesome. And we will update the EIP and whatever PRs we've already made to remove the timestamp inside the BPO array. And instead, it'll just have the BPO one time and so on. So similar to every other hard fork on the EL side. Any other EL side questions? Okay. And I guess you guys have EL side summary for Fusaka.NET 0. You guys have the mod XP stuff that has to go in, and the BPO changes for reading the Genesis file. I think besides that, most of the Fusaka.NET 0 topics are CL related. Any other EL side comments, questions? Great. So let's start the CL side topic again, I guess. Are there any open questions for how the BPO format needs to be on the CL side?
No, I don't believe so.
Yeah, Potus?
I would have disagreed with Justin. I don't know how it has to be on the CL side. I mean, we leave it as it is now, and we're going to start downscoring peers, or we have to do something on the P2P layer so that we can actually signal that we are on this or that fork.
I thought that we were talking about the format of the schedule, not like the implementation.
I think at this point, it's the whole BPO topic in general. So yeah, I guess the open question is what Potus stated right now.
Right. I mean, we need to agree on how this is going to be signaled.
Is there any issue actually, like we're only gonna have an issue if we bump the next blobs down, right? Because then we could have an invalid block which has more blobs than what you're expecting.
You can have it both ways. I mean, if you increase the blob count and you send a block with low blob count, then the gas in the next payload is going to be different on one fork or the other one. I mean, even if you send a block without any blobs, the gas might be different. So I think we need to agree on what is the best way. I mean, I have a proposal, but it doesn't mean that it's the best proposal, and I don't even know how to implement that. But if at least we agree on like the when do we want to start banning these peers? If it's at the handshake level, we agree that someone is going to go and specify it, and if it's not at the handshake level and it's on downscoring, then we can just leave it as it is now.
It feels like if we want to hit the Fusaka DevNet 0 deadline, we should leave it as it is now. But it sounds like the handshake approach is better longer term. Would this be a massive change if we were to tackle the handshake filtering in the future for Fusaka DevNet 1? And that would give us enough time for figuring out the how, who, what, and so on. Okay, that sounds good. Any objections to this approach? Yeah, Barnabas?
Could we not just include the gas cost calculation in the CL? And
Hell no! Hell no!
Okay.
I think that's opening a whole other can of worms. Yeah, I would also not do that. Okay, since there's no immediate objection to Potus's approach, Fortis, did you have an idea on how we can achieve this? Where do we specify this P2P change? And
No, I'm sorry, I'm not the right person, and we just lost the expert on the Prism team. I don't really know.
is
I
this
mean, it is part of the handshake message. I would just add this a single configuration on the handshake message.
is this something that you guys could help us with, Rahul?
Yeah, we definitely can, but I honestly need to understand a little bit better why this is not formulated as a fork in itself. I don't think I have full context here, so maybe
Oh,
I
I can actually answer to that thing. If we specify a full fork, then
Yeah.
that adds, it depends on the client, but at least I can tell for Prism, it adds a lot of boilerplate, a lot of code duplication, a lot of new testing that needs to be added. We are getting good at it. We went through many forks,
Yeah.
but this is a place where there can be a lot of bugs included, and it takes a lot of time to actually check that we are adding everything to at the same time correctly.
Yeah.
And it's fully tested. So we want to
Yeah.
try to avoid this. That was the whole point of these BPO forks.
Got it. So let me restate that to make sure that I understand it. Basically, from the protocol perspective and from the conceptual perspective, we kind of agree that conceptually it is a hard fork, but because of implementation difficulties and practicalities, it's better formulated as an independent entity to be communicated on the wire separately.
Correct. So we want to minimize what are the things that are being communicated, but exactly what you just said.
Okay. Yeah, I can stand behind that. Yeah, it's a matter of adding a field in that case and maybe like a hash of the BPO schedule if there is a standard interoperable format or like something else. We can figure that out. Yeah. So
Awesome.
Harry, you can assign this to me and I can help steer it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, Terence?
I'm actually curious what other CL team think, because I don't think I fully agree with POTUS. Like, if today, if you look at Fusaka, right, like just peer dust by itself, it's actually quite a simple change because there's no block structure change, there's no state structure change. So it is a hard fork, but the only changes are, of course, the new like peer dust stuff. But if without peer dust, the only changes are just P2P, which is what we wanted, right? We want to have some sort of like time activation and you jump to a new subnet and stuff like that. So basically, I do think maybe it is worth looking at like a hard fork as an approach versus like trying something else. But I'm not so sure. So I'm actually like curious what other CL team think about that. And I could be wrong here.
Just to add there, sorry, also kind of like take my perspective from somebody with fresh eyes and kind of like, with a bit of lack of knowledge here. But it sounds like a lot of the concerns are based on like how we approach hard forks today in clients, which is by using the boilerplate and so on. But given that we're like the solution that seems to be agreed here is to add a protocol field to avoid all that, wouldn't it be simpler? Because all we need in reality on the wire is to bump up a number on the protocol, which would be the fork itself, right? And that number is coming from, all the system to actually that requires boilerplating, but maybe you can intercept that. And maybe we can have something like a second path that takes precedence and at the implementation level, and that could be an easy thing to implement. So it does not activate the entire traditional hard fork machinery, but it's it may be a hack, quote unquote, but at least it does not percolate at the protocol level, which I think is going to ossify and it might be hard to pull out in the future. Sorry, I don't know if that was that was too long or maybe unclear. I can rephrase if necessary.
No, that sounds like silence of agreement potentially, but maybe we can create a thread for this topic in the consensus dev channel on ETH R&D and discuss a longer term solution. Either way, the decision for today would be that this won't be a blocker for Fusaka DevNet 0. we can come to an agreement on what the decision needs to be for Fusaka DevNet 1 and then block over that. And it would be great if if Rahul, you could create the thread on consensus dev, and then we can take it forward there as to what the proper solution should be.
Sure.
Awesome, thank you. So that should be the BPO topic. Does anyone else have any points to add or discuss for BPOs? Okay. Let's move on to Fork-specific stuff. So PureDAS in itself, we do have DevNet 7 up and running. Barnabas, do you want to give us an update on how it's going and if there's anything worth knowing?
It's been pretty smooth, I think. The backfilling is the only question at this point. Whether clients are able to backfill. And I think every single team is testing that independently. I haven't actually had the chance to take a look and do thorough testing.
Okay, got it. So it's just a question of clients actually testing their code and making sure that it's working.
Right, and we also have a checkpoint sync that's fully compatible now.
Nice. Do any CL devs have an update on backfill? Has anything been harder or easier than expected? Something that needs discussing today? Or is it just a matter of time now? Okay, I'll take that as a signal that it's just a matter of time then. Prism doesn't implement backfill, okay, yet. Yeah, do reach out. Sorry, do reach out to us and we should be able to help with testing that. But yeah, other than that, I think we'll assume that client teams are working on the topic. Will, do you maybe want to go, sorry, Barnabas, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my quick question would be if every client team would be on track to ship Fusaka DevNet 0 images by Monday, next week, Monday. We wouldn't need like every single client combinations, but it would be nice to have at least 3 ELs and 3 CLs. And it looks like we already have 3 ELs.
Yeah, Mario?
I think the main problem could be that we haven't finished tests. The main blocker has been so far that we are creating a new East format to run PRDAS blobs and verification of the proofs. So that's been a little bit complicated on our side, and we're still like trying to fix that out. But I don't think we will be able to have. I mean, maybe for the end of the week we could probably have the finish with the test. Also, ModX is still a work in progress, so I think we are the main blocker at the moment. If we want to launch without these tests, I mean, it would be okay as long as we don't trigger ModX probably. But yeah, I think generally next week is going to be like safer for us to have a release of East with the ModX test and also the PureDAS test.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think since we have PRDAS DevNet 7 running, we can still take a call on it on Thursday if we urgently need Fusaka DevNet 0 or if we can wait a few extra days for the test releases and so on. But it doesn't sound like a decision we have to take today. Would you guys also be having a BPO test, Mario?
I need to check on that. Yeah, I would definitely have to do it somehow. But yeah, no, I don't have an answer now. Yep.
Okay, since you guys already have a lot on your plate, maybe the BPO test for now can be done on kurtosis because we already merged in the PR slash have one open PR left to have the ability in kurtosis. So for now, we can just do BPO tests on kurtosis, and then eventually they can come to execution spec tests, so you guys don't have to spend time on that right now.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Will, do you want to maybe take over a bit for PIADA spec discussions?
Yeah, sure. I think the majority of items have been discussed. There's two that are still open. 519, that's tracked on the Fusaka DevNet 0 spec, which I forget who opened that. Oh, Manu opened that. Not sure on the status of that. And then also Francis, the Git blob sidecar spec still continues to be open, which it's been open for a while. Not sure what the holdup is on that, or if anything's blocking it.
I can talk about the first one. At least for Prism, we are very probably going to implement the same strategy that Lodestar. That is to say, have a blinded local flag internally.
Could you repeat what the flag does, please?
Yeah. So it's written in the issue. Basically, this blinded local flag lets a user say to the beacon node, okay, if you are locally building a block with some blobs, do not send the data related to blobs to the validator client, and the validator client won't send them back. But the main con of using this is that the node operator must have a sticky connection between the validator client and the beacon node. It's a needed condition. And the main pro is that it will save a lot of bandwidth between the beacon node and the validator client. My main proposal in this GitHub ticket was to do it by default. But the main issue is that in this case, we have stateful beacon API, which is something we avoided to do with the beacon API. And so using this, implementing a blinded local flag for a client is kind of hack to avoid, yes, a big data transmission between the beacon node and validator client.
Okay, are there any other points people want to add to the PR, or should we just reach out to the maintainers to be merging it soon? Okay, we'll follow up on that later then.
And then regarding 524, I don't see Francis on here. I don't know, Justin, if you have any context on that. It seems as if that it hasn't received any conversation for several weeks, so I'm not sure if it's just been forgotten or if it's blocked by something that I'm not catching.
I don't really have any context on it. I just left a review a while ago.
Okay, I'll ping Francis. That's really all I had. And then I don't know, Potus, I saw the post that you shared with that you did the work on the RLNC, the random linear network coding as it relates to like determining max blob count. I don't know if that's I just added it into my list of things that I'm keeping track of. I don't know if that's
No, so currently
need to
this
be discussed.
this linear coding is only being tested and implemented only for broadcasting of blocks. There's other people, Francesco's here, who's been evaluating the viability of random linear network coding for blob propagation, but it's not really clear. I mean, currently with the current assumptions on that work, it actually makes it worse. So for DA and for propagation of blobs, that type of erasure coding is still is early research.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
RLNC stuff might be prime candidate for new ACD discussion topics.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is, by the way, just chiming in, this is something that the peer-to-peer networking team plans to also help drive. So yeah, happy to help here. One thing that I wanted to say is that I agree in that in itself, everything else as it stands today, it probably won't help. And to actually truly leverage the benefits of approaches like network coding, well, we're going to need to change the meshing topologies and even use transports like UDP and other stuff. So or unreliable datagrams and Quick and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's a major work stream.
Great. Yeah. Other than that, everything else seems to be covered on the spec for Fusaka DevNet 0 and was discussed earlier in the call.
Awesome. Thank you. So any other blockers towards DevNet 0?
It would
Any other
be great if you could discuss some MEV track on Fulu as well. So last week I tried the mock builder and this seemed to have some issues, and Pavan mentioned that he was going on it, but I'm not sure if anyone would have an update regarding the MEV stack.
Yeah, I'm guessing the builder specs have to be updated for Fusaka, right?
That should be done already.
Okay.
Yeah, we have like a provisional version of those. We might change them, but they're good enough for now.
Any of the clients should be ready to be tested with, by the way, because Pavan mentioned that it was a lighthouse bug, but I'm happy to try it out with anyone else if anyone has done the implementation.
Just be warned that Pavan's mock build uses Lighthouse underneath. So if there's a Lighthouse bug, then one other client testing it won't help you.
Yeah, but he mentioned that this specific bug that he saw was not related to Lighthouse. So like the mock builder should, in theory, be working. But yeah, we haven't had a way to verify it. So
yeah, I think we can push more for that once we're done with DevNet 0 and we have basic Fusaka stuff working. But yeah, I think it's a good idea for teams to start looking at it at least. I see Camille was on the call as well. Do you want to give us an update on the performance DevNets?
Hi. Yeah, I was off for last week, so do not have much, but captured what our team done. So for performance DevNet, we are in a preparation for a second version of that, which will be more mainnet aligned, and it will be clearer for everyone to ensure which gas limit is safer than other, comparing to original perfnet, which was running some crazy numbers and was exposing some performance leaks, some performance possibility fixes in cleaner way. And also, in meantime, we are reviving one of our previous researches with opcodes research, with worst case research, and right now making it much more better observable for any of the client teams. So this is work in progress. And yeah, we will run it again on the latest versions and share some results on the gas limit research project. So right now, yeah, we're still working on new perfnet.
Awesome, thank you. And I think the other topic related to that was we have 60 million on Sepolia already. Do we want to start pushing on Hoodie, or has anyone seen anything on Sepolia that indicates we should stop right now?
I guess as signaling already started to happen on mainnet, we should do that on Hoodie as soon as we can, so we can see if there is anything problematic on bigger amount of validators.
Okay. Yeah, Marius, just to your point, Sam did an initial analysis once Sepolia went into 60 million, and he didn't really notice any changes or nothing worth writing about yet. But we have to still do a follow-up, and we're first finishing up the Pectra follow-up before we do the 60 million follow-up. Okay, so that sounds like we should go ahead with 60 million for Hoodie. Sorry, for Hoodie at least. And I see that there's a bunch of discussions on the gas limit testing topic, especially related to 10 MB blocks. Do you feel like discussing it, Tony, or I don't know if Ben is on here?
Hey, I mean, the network will basically break without it. So I think it makes sense to be into Fusaka, and then we don't have to worry about that as an element. Because we can't propagate blocks larger than 10 megabytes, so we should cap it, and then we don't have to worry about the block size when increasing gas limits.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, but I guess that isn't directly related to anything that happens at 60 million gas, right?
No, we're fine to about 105.
Okay. Cool. And one thing that PK also brought up over the last week is that the 10 MB block size also includes a tester slashing. So we will probably test Hoodie at 60 million with a bunch of slashings in there so that we can make sure that they still land up on the network fine. Okay, anything else on the performance gas limit topic that we should be discussing today?
There is a discussion about transaction limit, and I don't know if it's worth discussing today.
Yeah, I only saw that discussion from earlier today. I haven't fully caught up on it. I don't know if anyone has something else to add to the topic right now.
So originally it was set at 30 million gas, and we're thinking that maybe 5 million gas might be more sensible based on what transactions are on chain, because the ones over 5 million are either subdividable into smaller transactions or Zen mining, which are also subdividable into smaller transactions. And if a transaction eats the entire block, then it's not very fair to other transactions that want to be in there. And you can't parallelize a single transaction. Like if the block is a one transaction, that then becomes our worst case in terms of parallelism.
Yeah, makes sense, but maybe you could add that as a discussion topic for ACD this week. I think that would give more people time to catch up on the discussion to begin with, and probably ACD is a better platform for discussing wider protocol changes. Okay, then the last topic on the agenda for me is history expiry. Has any client made any progress over the last week? Something people want to discuss? Releases, defaults change, documentation? Okay. I think there is a portal call happening immediately after this. So in case any client teams are interested in that, then please head over there to discuss history expiry. Anything else that needs discussion today? Okay, then thank you everyone for joining and have a nice day.
See you guys.
Thank you.